We'll be starting shortly. If you'd like to see the presentation, you can double click that and it will make the video show a little bit more.
Hey, Lynn.
Hello, Maureen.
How are you, darling?
So it's all about roadblocks and grace and fun because I'm in New Jersey where we just had the hurricane and have lost power probably for 5 days.
Oh no. Well,
so just like schools, I'm gonna, tough it out and you do what you have to do. So it's all good.
It is all good. Tenacity, my friend. I think it's one of the traits we're all resiliency that we never thought we'd have to call upon. We are, for sure.
Exactly.
So we have a couple more minutes. I just jumped on to, again, for those of you who know Pasonic Partners and may not know, our partners in technology, all things technology, both from a day-to-day operation of our menus and recipes to obviously the fortunate partnership we have been graced with today for having this hop-in conference sponsored by our team at Healthy Pro. Lynn and I have gone back from the beginning of when I started using this, and one of my favorite things to do when we've had trainings is invite her and her team. I'm spoiled because I've had her for a long time. So we asked her again, it's kind of like when I said about Suzanne, I phoned a friend and said, hey, I would love to have you talk about one of the pain points our customers are talking about, and that is we are going to see many schools leverage a virtual or distance scholar program and not have feeding on site. And so what that means for many of you, if you are not universal free, if you're not CEP or Provision 2, you're thinking about how am I going to do this? Later on today in the agenda, we will have Bridget Hires from the Ohio Department of Education speaking specifically to the Ohio waivers, but in general, waivers across the United States have been applied for by states to allow us to continue to serve non-congregate meals. And also for the parents of students to be able to pick up meals. So back in spring, many of us transitioned to delivering not only one, but sometimes 5 breakfast and lunches at curbside pickup. And so in that, many of us leveraged the use of Google Forms as one way to be able to communicate to our parents what we were going to and see their intention of using our food system so we could have enough food prepared. In true Healthy Pro fashion, the experts at that technology team have come up with a My Meal Order solution. Again, one way to piggyback off of those of you who have an existing Healthy Meal Planner Pro account with us, but also perhaps to leverage thinking about a way to do this if you're starting down a path of investigating what options are out there and available. And again, Lynn, we don't see your face, but I certainly am grateful. I hope the hurricane wasn't too scary and that everybody's well in your home. And I'll pass it over to you. I'll stay on to help manage the chat with questions, but it's all you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So yes, we are all faced with complete changes to what we're used to doing. And I think the key is being as flexible as you can because you don't necessarily know what's going to be around the next corner. You may start out with delivery or pickup. We just don't really know. So looking at how do I best position myself to move forward, I think is really the key of what's going on. So with that in mind, as Maureen said, Healthy Pro looked at what is it that we need to do to be able to assist schools in the fall. Okay, next slide. So Maureen touched a little bit on who Healthy Pro is. Pro, as she said, is the menu planning and nutrient analysis software, but we have actually done more than that, looking at supporting food services beyond just the menu. Our understanding is the menu drives the business. That is our core belief. And so everything stems from that. How you set up your time, how your labor falls into place, how your costs are derived. And again, in this particular case, what are you going to do about feeding your students? Because you're going to have some kind of menu. As Maureen mentioned, there are waivers, yes, but it's not a free-for-all. So there are rules that still need to be followed. And, how do you show your accountability for that? And that's a piece where Healthy Pro comes in to try to help with that. So My Meal Order. My Meal Order is actually a separate company. It's not been built from Healthy Pro, but we looked for a company that already had a meal ordering system because obviously it needs to get off the ground going. So who's somebody who already was doing this in the past? And so My Meal Order is that company. They were designed not necessarily specifically for COVID, but for pre-orders in general. So think back to the days when you used to be able to have those bars or build it yourself meals. Those are the original intent of what My Meal Order did. It also is a payment system, but you do not have to change your point of sale or your back of the house option to be able to utilize it. So we're setting it so that you can load your students in from your existing system with their eligibility to be able to then use the pre-ordering option. And again, it's molding and pivoting as we need it to do. So initially what most people are looking for in terms of an ordering system is something just to give them some idea of numbers. You are looking at starting the fall with probably, no understanding of how many kids are coming to each site, depending upon what happens when the school bell finally rings for the first time. This is one option to get the word out to your parents and the students about how they can tell you and give you the feedback so that you can actually try to have reasonable costs. Okay? So there are two parts, obviously, to any meal order system. The first is the parent or student view. So the way this particular program will work is that a student or the parent can log in. They'll have their own login account, but it is family-based, which means the parent can link all of his or her children into one account and see them all at once, place an order for them all at once. For those of you who may be doing pickup or delivery, this is going to be helpful because it means that all of those students are likely to be located at the same place. The flexibility of this is that when you decide how you're going to do meal service, eventually, hopefully, how you set it up in terms of the school or the teacher may actually not be the standard kind of setup. So one of the things we are investigating is if you're not in a traditional back to school kind of scenario and students or parents are picking up meals, it may not be at their home school because they have different ages, or geographically it may be at a different location. And so looking at how to assign students, and that's where the upload of information will be helpful in terms of setting up what their school is. Their school may not actually be the school to which they're originally assigned. So we have to be able to be flexible to look at how else this might work. You'll be able to see each meal. So as you can see here, you've got an example of days that have passed that are grayed out, days that are coming up in the future with maybe one or two choices. It's literally just the entree that is listed. Typically, we're going to focus on that just because at this point in time, if you're doing a pickup or something, that's really what's driving that meal. Many of you may have the supplemental pieces to ensure that it's a reimbursable meal, but fluid changes going on for some of those items until you can lock down a full menu. So focusing on the entree name or whatever the choice may be initially. Once something has been ordered, you see that it is marked so that it's very clear to indicate that this particular choice has already been chosen, and it will not let somebody else make that choice. So for an example, if this is the parent's view with all of their children, if Greg then went into his own account, he would not be able to make a choice because his meal has already been ordered. As I said, it does give you flexibility, and the cost issue is one of the last pieces that we will address in terms of how we can be most flexible. Because this is based on a payment system, there are some people who are actually trying to keep it through this payment system. Many people are obviously waiting to hear about the waivers in that scenario and what's going to happen. So you can set this up with a zero cost as well. Okay? Eventually, we hope to get back to a scenario where students can begin to make choices on their meals, and this will flow through seamlessly to be able to do that. So here you have an example of what the entree is and making a choice for the type of milk. This is where we assume people will move to fairly quickly, and then after that, you would even have the ability to break down to build a particular meal. For example, a sub sandwich, to choose the meat, the types of cheese, the breads, the condiments, toppings, etc., would all be able to be within that choice area. Okay? So again, going back to flexibility, because we're not sure what is going to happen on the first day of school. Another alternative is bulk ordering. And this would be a situation where perhaps if you are in school, your teachers would be able to place orders for their classrooms, kind of like, you know, their old hand raised to say who's going to have which choice, but becoming a little bit more crucial at this point in time. One of the options available here that we're setting up with people is that you would be able, the teacher would be able to create a classroom list as well as the parents having access. Therefore, the teacher can go in and order if someone has forgotten to place an order and wanted to make sure that they had it. Actually go in, and this is a bulk order option where they could go through and say, I need X numbers of cheese pizzas and so forth based upon their classroom register. Okay? Eventually, getting into some kind of a rhythm, there is the ability to order for the week, for the month, which if some of the waivers go through and grant the ability for, you know, people to pick up and be fed at no cost, this could really be helpful because they could place for larger portions or larger time frames. This can be turned on or turned off. There are pluses and minuses to both, people forgetting and so forth, but it does have that ability. Also reminders of favorites. When they check out, you can see in the cart area, it's going to reinforce whatever it was that they ordered. So ultimately, something like a la carte or a mixed meal with a la carte will be able to show in the cart very specifically what is happening. So the idea is get through, hopefully, COVID and move forward into a more standard kind of meal system, but be able to work through both. Next slide. So then, of course, there's the piece that's important to you is how do I access my end of things? You know, what's the information that I want? What am I going to be able to get from this data once somebody goes in to order? And I realize this is small and you're not really supposed to see it. It's really about the number of choices that you have. But on the back end is the setup side. And the way Healthy Pro will interact with my meal order is that we will load in your recipe names so that all of your recipes will be in the system to be able to create your menus. We will also be loading nutrient information as well for anyone that perhaps doesn't have my meal order or my school menus, where they can get the information a little bit more readily and build it up. So those items will be added. You will still, in my meal order, have to put this together. And one thing I do want to say, because not everybody is familiar with Healthy Pro or might be using it, this is a standalone system as well. So you don't have to have Healthy Pro to do that. To utilize this system, it can, again, interact with different POS systems to load in your students. And I don't know if it will load menu names, but again, for at least the initial purposes of just getting a menu title in, it's not that difficult to add some of the additional information. You may just not put in nutrients or so forth. Next slide, please. So this is your menu build section. Once you have created a meal, you're going to put it into this calendar simply by adding a particular item, clicking on the day, searching for the name, and loading it in. You can have as many different choices as you wish, and then each one of these items, as they're loaded in, is going to have some background information associated with it. Next slide. So I realize this one's really hard to see, but this is the background piece of building a meal. So again, as we discussed with COVID, you see at the bottom, there is a listing of all of the recipe names, and that's what would come in from Healthy Pro. And you simply are going to search for the item and click it to move over to the right-hand side, creating that meal, and then titling it at the top. Again, starting simple. What is it that you need to get through initially to get your feet on the ground, to get feedback, and then as things start to develop, as you're starting to see what's actually going to happen, at that point, you can decide how much additional information you want to build into here, whether you want to have choices such as your milk choices, you know, what happens with waivers, so on and so forth. So you can build this to identify anything you want. If people are doing even bulk service, looking at building recipes that would indicate the bulk service, or
Hi guys, it looks like we have Lynn frozen a little bit. I know that Laura is helping advance Lynn's slides. And while I don't know a ton about this Healthy Meal Pro pre-ordering system, our team did sit and watch Lynn go through these slides. We think it's a very interesting service. We also know that many of you are interested in gaining information directly so that you can minimize food waste. So as we wait for Lynn to jump back in, a couple of the highlights of why would you even think about using a pre-order system. Again, I think at the beginning of this, I highlighted if you are a school that is going to have to consider counting and claiming because you are running free and reduced applications and direct certification, pre-order is going to tie in to your counting and claiming, which is awesome. Meaning that your parents will be able to sign up for the lunch, which would mean you can provide the accurate volume of that lunch. And then also the idea would be you are able to connect it to the right child. And so for all of us that are kind of thinking through this existing challenges of counting and claiming, a pre-order system similar to this one, many of you also we've chatted about Google Docs, is a way that you can connect a parent with a student's name. Generally, the parents are who are funding the account. For those of you who are on this session, I know Tina's session will be recorded. The whole idea of touchless, many schools are using pre-funded accounts so that there's no cash exchange to help minimize exposure and contamination and obviously virus transmission. So in order to leverage and kind of why to leverage a pre-order system, either this one or a Google platform, I think the goal would be to minimize touch points and also really remain compliant with your counting and claiming. Lynn, I don't know if you're back with us yet.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right. I just jumped in and did a little song and dance about why even do pre-order, but now that you're back, you go, girl.
I'm not sure where you lost me. Did you just lose me on this slide?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, good. So yes, as Maureen was saying, thank you. Really, pre-order is about helping you get some tools and get some knowledge about what's going to happen. You know, into the spring, there was a lot of confusion and things started out great in many schools and then really dropped out, or you would hear about, wow, these schools are serving so many different people. And then, you know, countless number of schools that we dealt with then went out thinking, oh my gosh, we're going to serve all of our kids plus and serve significantly less. So a lot depends on so many factors. But I think what you do is still great and valuable. It's just how can you do it with the thought that I've got to keep this program moving forward and efficient as much as I can. So that's where this piece comes in. And again, focusing on what it is that you need to do to get started. So in this particular scenario, this slide here, this is explaining how you can set up the meal. So again, you can ultimately be very complex and have them choose many different components of it, or you can just start out with the first entree and fill in from there. It's going to be a matter of just building what you want. So this is how you're going to create that initial meal that your parents would see. Again, where Healthy Pro comes in is we will be loading in all of the items on the left-hand side. And again, it is a standalone choice. So you can do this with or without Healthy Pro. It's just if you have Healthy Pro, we'll load your recipes and the nutrient information in as well. Next slide, please. So this is really what you want to see is how am I going to count things? How is this going to work? So there are a few different options depending upon how you're going to figure out the best method of delivery for you. One is just a generic total count for teachers. So this will count up if they do orders. Now, some of these are for multiple days. Typically, you would run it for just a single day, but you can see the parameters on the left, teacher, school, grade level. Again, flexibility in terms of your school may actually be called, you know, Smith Park, if that's where the bus is dropping meals off, or It may be that all ages go to the middle school because that is your pickup site. So flexibility in terms of setup and then running the list based upon the information you get. This information can be changed manually as well. So in addition to an upload from your POS system, you can individually go in. So after those first couple weeks, you may start developing a certain group of individuals who are picking up in certain locations, and you can modify those. Maybe it's not within their home area, but it's closer for them because of work or something else. So that can all be adjusted. So this is one choice on the teacher checklist of what those printouts can look like. Bottom line, you've got to be able to keep track of who's getting what. So you need some kind of method for rostering or taking names. Next slide. Another option that people have looked at are labels, so that you can print labels based upon students that you expect to come through. This is particularly helpful for individuals who got to a point of offering maybe one or two different choices as they system. A lot of people actually did have choices. So this ensures that each person gets that, or if there's a specific option. There is, you can see on this one, there is an option for allergens as well within the system to track that and to identify those. That's something that potentially, depending on the time frame that we may be facing, some people might want to consider. And then a third type of list or roster is the specific classroom list that would then send out for what each individual child took. So this is more of a hybrid choice. It could also be used as your checklist roster as well. So again, it's all about determining what's going to work best for you, but ensuring that you have some kind of system to document who's coming through and where they may be. From this, you then could go into payment accounts if that becomes the option of what we need to do with deducting payments. There are a few people that we've talked to that are even considering running this payment system separately, potentially. That seems like that might be a lot of work, but who knows? Again, you don't have to do payments with this. It can be listed as zero and then charged to their other regular payment account. That would be a manual option. Next slide. And then for your benefit, this is really where the needs of your kitchen come in, is a listing of what is it that I need. So this kind of works as an order sheet or a shopping list for everything that has been ordered, so that you have some idea of the numbers. The whole point of pre-order is to look at, controlling your costs, to be able to know what is it that I'm going to need. And so this final piece of being able to determine how many 1% milks I need per day, per class, per delivery, whatever those parameters are that you choose. Next slide. So again, just as a little wrap up, part of our focus is what is it that we can do to help you with having the menu that you're going to need. We do have on our healthypro.com page a COVID resources section where you will be able to find graphics, information about hand washing that you may end up wanting to send home, or even fun little events to make meal service a little bit more exciting if they end up not having school. that could be sent home with them. So there are lots of resources on our website, as well as Maureen mentioned the Google form. Many of you are using Google, and there is a video on our website that tells you step by step how to set up a Google form as well. So there are lots of options that are available for you. We're happy to help with suggestions and ideas and share some of the information that we've heard in terms of what other people are doing. I think you know your schools best. You know what your staff is capable of, what you guys are able to do in this scenario from spring. And so the decisions that you make need to be your own, need to be what's right for you, and certainly look for resources. I know Pasanic is more than happy to be that resource. They have great information on their program page as well. So look for people to help you make the best decision for you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. You know, again, I always say,
Thank you.
Been using this hashtag Stronger Together. I always feel so well supported by Lynn and the team at Healthy Pro. Again, thank you for your expertise, for your technical support, for finding a My Meal Order vetted solution. For those of you who don't know, I mean, I know a lot of people are getting advertisements from other places that are saying, hey, we have a solution. Those are all brand new technologies. One thing about My Meal Order that stood out to us is that it's been vetted and it's been used prior to COVID. So we all know we love technology. God bless us when it goes out, right? We have to be able to be flexible, like I jumping on here and helping when Lynn's audio went out. But we all are here to provide the best resources. And thank you again to Lynn. Sorry about the hurricane. Stay well, my friend. I hope your power comes back on. And for those of you who attended, I'm going to throw out a last minute question. Please answer in the session chat. Will you be doing a pre-order system? Just a simple yes or no. Pre-order yes, pre-order no will help us connect you with further resources, either this, My Meal Order, or Google Docs. So we're very excited. Remember, you're going to jump out of this session. We have a great lunch session. So if you want to grab yourself a bite to eat, we are going to be visiting with our Recipe Advisory Council. You get to meet some of your peers on a panel discussing what they're doing with their menus. And again, we just thank you for your time today, and we hope you continue to enjoy the day's sessions. We'll jump off now and jump on to our others. Thank you.